Paul Miedema from Calabash Tours. We're at the Responsible Tourism and Destinations Conference 2015. And yesterday you said you're pissed off. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, Martin, I presented yesterday at the conference around the issue of social and economic inclusion. And while I was putting the presentation together, I just started to reflect a little bit on what's happening in South Africa at the moment. And there's two really big events that are taking place, or two big activities taking place at the moment. The one is really the xenophobic violence that we are seeing spreading across South Africa again. And the second one is the debate that we're currently having around what our heritage is, and the Rhodes statue coming down, and statues must fall issues. And really my anger is directed a little bit at the way that the industry at these conferences and at WTM Africa, where everyone's exhibiting at the moment, kind of continues to think that it's business as usual. What I see at the moment is that our country is 75% of our arrivals are from other African countries. And as an industry, I have not heard one squeak or peep about the xenophobic violence. Really what we're saying is come to South Africa, come and enjoy who we are. But if you're here from the other parts of Africa, be careful, because we might send you home again, or we might even kind of set you on fire. So for me, I'm kind of angry that there's not been any response at all from the tourism industry around this. And yet Africa is like so important to our tourism industry. Around the heritage issues, I think the tourism industry continues to be a white-dominated industry. And the levels of arrogance and really white privilege that I've been hearing from people in the sector, really ignoring why people are angry about the Rhodes statue. And I don't care if it stays up or came down. But what I do care about is, do we understand who we are as South Africans, and do we understand what we are selling as a destination? And do we understand where we come from as a country? Because we can't just continue to sell our beautiful coastlines and our fantastic game reserves and our five-star lodges. We really need to start to engage more on a people-to-people level in our tourism industry. But again, I find the industry pretends it's just business as usual, as all of this anger and exclusion, social exclusion that people are expressing is coming in waves all across the country. There's no response, and people still just want to continue to sell the hype. And we are not immune to it. The industry will be affected by these negative images that are going out. And it's not our problem alone to solve. We're a business, we're a tourism sector. It's not our problem alone to solve. But really, I would have hoped that there was maybe a little bit more sensitivity and a little bit more expression around some of these things that are happening. We are here at WTM Africa with our African brothers from all over that are exhibiting. How do we look them in the eye after we saw what's been happening in Durban? How do we continue to build this brand of South Africa as being part of Africa, our Africa arrivals being so important, when the way we are treating our fellow Africans in South Africa is pretty appalling? And I understand that people who are here as migrants are not tourists, but we have a huge amount of tourism that comes out of other African countries. It's very beneficial to our country. So I'm just kind of annoyed that there's a silence. And for me, silence in this context is tacit acceptance.
My congratulations on bringing up this subject. Daniel Barenboim, the conductor and pianist, made the BBC Reith Lectures in 2006. And in the final lecture, which was delivered in Jerusalem, he spoke about what would be needed for peace to come to Palestine and Israel and the Middle East in general. He said in that lecture one of the most effective and intelligent things I think I've ever heard about conflict. Because let's face it, we are in conflict in South Africa. He said for peace to come to the Middle East, what was going to be needed is sensitive talking and often painful listening. How would you instigate sensitive talking and often painful listening in the tourism industry, from your experience as somebody who operates a responsible tourism operation? situation?
Yeah, I mean that's a tough question. I certainly agree that we need to do a lot more listening, and that listening is not always going to be comfortable. I think for me, really, the issue is just that the status quo is not acceptable as it is at the moment. I run a very small business. I am not a big influencer of how things will pan out. But really what I would have hoped, where we come together as an industry at these kind of conferences, that these things are at least on the radar. You know, we had Adam Abba from the Gambia speaking yesterday at the conference about some of their work in the Gambia. And I was discussing with him this. His wife was sending him messages while he's here in Cape Town. Are you safe, Adam? I mean, how have we allowed the situation to develop like this? And look, I think as a tourism industry, what we need to do is, number one, we must start to acknowledge that some of the situations in this country are going to be detrimental to our business. And we must put pressure where we can on our leadership, be that in our cities, be that in our provinces, be that on a national level. I think the second thing is that we need, as an industry, to start to reach out to our African compatriots that are here at WTM Africa, for example, and perhaps start to speak to them about what are the perceptions in their country of South Africa at the moment. How can we start to have dialogue that we don't lose the potential to continue to attract those people, to assure them that we do actually want their clients to come into our country, despite some of the very negative images that we are seeing. And, you know, the media plays up the most negative. There are also stories on social media at the moment of, you know, South Africans taking foreigners into their homes, protecting them. So we are not all one people. We are not all xenophobes. But I think we can't have WTM Africa and not even pay any attention to what is happening.
It's amazing, the irony seems to be lost. We have WTM Africa. We are host to 75% of our guests are African, and we can't have this conversation, or we appear not to be able to have this conversation.
Yeah, I mean that's where my frustration comes from.
That goes back to where we started. You said we're just not acknowledging the realities of our situation.
And it's not good for business, Martin. You know, like I make my bread and butter from the tourism industry. If there are no people coming to South Africa, I don't have no business. I have to retrench my staff, and you know, it kind of, all the knock-on effects start to happen. But we can't pretend it's not happening. It's not the first time. It happened a few years ago. It calmed down. Now it's come back again. And in that space between, I can't remember exactly when it was, but 4 years ago, I think, in that space, there's been very little dialogue around it. And you know what really angers me is that it's now not even called xenophobia. It's referred to as criminal elements. It's referred to as Afrophobia. What is this nonsense? This is plain and simple challenge around economic exclusion that the majority of South Africans feel, and the challenge that they are feeling from migrants that are coming from other parts of Africa and working here. This is connected to our social inequality and our poverty issues. Of course it is. So tourism, you know, is a big employer. We employ over 1 million people in South Africa. It's a very important industry. It's worth more than gold. But we're quiet. We're quiet when our clients are, you know, seeing their brothers and sisters being hounded like dogs in the street. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Paul, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.